My channel is focused mainly on video games so far, but movies and films can offer a lot too. I've always known I had to make a video about Lars and the Real Girl. It's one of my favorites. The main character, Lars, is one of the few movie protagonists I've seen with mental health struggles who's portrayed with respect and compassion. This movie confronts stigma surrounding mental health and therapy and delivers an overwhelmingly kind message about the power of friendship, the importance of compassion, and the incredible adventure of learning how to love oneself. Although some audience members might sit down for this movie ready to heckle Lars, casting him and people with similar struggles in far-off outgroups, what they're treated to instead is a story that applies to everyone and a few lessons we all need, including how to accept love we don't think we deserve. This is a story about a painfully shy young man named Lars and his love for a sex doll named Bianca. We watch as the sympathetic Lars develops a delusion that the sex doll he ordered online is actually a young missionary who is taking a sabbatical to travel around the world, starting with his sleepy little Wisconsin town. This situation terrifies his family, but he's overjoyed by the companionship of someone safe and perfectly accepting like Bianca. Bianca is imbued with a gentle and loving nature which delights Lars, inspiring him to shed some shyness and dive into his first committed relationship with her. The backdrop of this story is the comedy and drama of his family and community scrambling to understand and, quote, fix what's going on in Lars's head. Along the way, people see new sides of Lars, of themselves, and learn the importance of Bianca's presence. This movie offers us not only a deeply compassionate portrait of mental illness and loneliness, it also invites us to consider in what ways we are like Lars. When have we felt similarly lonely? When have we stubbornly denied ourselves access to love, tenderness, or physical affection? We spend much of the 106-minute runtime observing Lars and his relationship with Bianca and how he grows from it. Like the characters that surround Lars, along the way we begin to understand the significance of Bianca. And while watching him and Bianca, we might find ourselves meditating on the nature of relationships, particularly our own. We might think about our experiences, about the loneliness and love that we've known. We might recognize what love does to Lars. Around Bianca, the anxiety that kept Lars frozen and hidden at home begins to melt away. In Bianca, he finds a sorely needed, compassionate, and loving ear. She's willing to listen to him talk about himself, his family, his interests, and his feelings. Although Bianca isn't real, Lars grants himself permission, through her love for him, to celebrate himself lovingly. He speaks more openly to others about himself when Bianca is near. He visits personally significant places to more deeply reminisce about his difficult childhood, and he feels that his presence at parties or gatherings is justified and wanted. He begins to love himself, to forgive himself for his eccentricities, and even put in the hard work of battling his social anxiety. Before Bianca, he felt safe alone and comfortable with the pain of loneliness. He didn't try to reach out to others, and any help offered to him seemed like it was a burden, a false hope that he could deserve affection when he was sure he didn't. But after meeting Bianca, he lets himself consider that he might be worth the time and love of others. All of this is accomplished without Bianca needing to be real. Through Lars, we can better see how many of our emotional walls in love and self-love are as imaginary as Bianca is. Although we might feel justified in denying ourselves kind words or compassionate understandings, this movie challenges us to break our own rules and allow ourselves to appreciate ourselves. There might be a concern that a movie like this trivializes the realities of people who struggle with social anxiety or delusions, but something I love about this movie is how full Lars feels as a character. It's made clear to us that beyond the mental health struggles we watch him battle, he's a very intelligent, deeply loving, and very insightful person. He understands people very well and picks up on small emotional cues in others immediately, something he must have learned as a survival skill when he was a child. He is not a writer's puppet for silly shenanigans. He feels real and relatable, making him a perfect role model for others who can find a little bit of themselves in him. An absolutely touching realization that we learn about Lars during one of his many therapy sessions is that physical contact with another person brings him an almost unbearable pain. We also learn about his cold childhood with his father. Lars suffered as a child. His father neglected him in key emotional ways because Lars's birth resulted in his mother's death. Lars was alone with a father who withheld love, affection, and attention until Lars believed he didn't deserve those things, and even developed a pain condition that kept him from wanting or enjoying touch, and keeping him from getting any hopeful ideas that someday he could be allowed to want affection. There is so much subtlety in the writing for this film. Rewatching it, I've noticed that Lars is never far from the baby blanket made by his mother, which might serve as a symbol to him that someone once loved him. He uses it as a scarf or a blanket and to protect those he loves from the cold. And the arrival of Bianca seemed to have been triggered by his anxiety around the pregnancy of his brother's wife, which must have reminded him about the loss of his mother. Although we may not have similar traumas, we may understand on a deeply personal level what it feels like to be neglected, unloved, or to run from affection. This is why Lars's eventual triumph over his emotional walls, his hard work over several months to learn to accept touch and joy from relationships can feel so inspirational to us. We, like Lars, have identified ways in which we cause pain to ourselves or withhold what we need from ourselves, and we also want to fight those hurtful misunderstandings. Lars has the opportunity to start a real relationship with someone from the very beginning of the film, but avoids it like the plague. This is more normal than we think. However, this is something that's not widely discussed in society. After all, having a significant other is seen as a trophy to prove our social prowess or our normalcy. Not being in a relationship can feel scary. We don't like feeling alone, and worse, being seen as alone. For all the attention and idolization we give romantic love in our stories, we don't talk about how scary it is to actually step into a committed relationship. Lars's relationship with Bianca is a manifestation of this poignant fear. It can be very reassuring to see a character who is as scared of love as we were, or are. It's also encouraging to see him overcome that fear just enough to want to take a chance on someone he can't control. We might need this movie when we feel like we've been a little too hard on ourselves and need to contemplate our strangeness in a compassionate way. Lars, no matter how strange he is, remains a lovable person throughout the film who we genuinely care for and wish the best for. By exercising compassion for Lars at his strangest, we can gain some practice exercising compassion for ourselves at our strangest. We might need this movie to gain some encouragement to love ourselves despite our quirks. This film turns the usual formula on its head, although it ends with the hopeful note that Lars feels strong enough to start a relationship with a woman he really likes. The cure for Lars's shyness wasn't a kiss at the end of the movie. It was only because of his hard work throughout the film that he could open this new chapter of his life. Romance doesn't solve our problems. We can't replace self-love with the love of another. Instead, like Lars, we must all embark on the hard work of learning to open our hearts to others' affection with the confidence that we deserve their love and to be strong enough to offer our energy, patience, and care in return. Loving others and being loved are skills. If we could develop a curriculum of movies to help teach us or remind us about important life lessons, Lars and the Real Girl would belong neatly in a lesson plan about the scariest and most mysterious skills we all struggle to learn: how to love and how to be loved. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more videos about mental health, games, and movies, please go ahead and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for other movies or games to cover, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, happy watching.